So you've just bought a Gen 3 tilting spare wheel carrier. This is how you fit it. Your vehicle will have a 2-inch hitch receiver installed, and this is where we will mount our product to. When you receive your Gen 3 tilting spare wheel carrier, it'll come in one main box with the hardware and everything that you've ordered from the web store, including any accessories that you may have purchased as well. The first step is mounting the lower assembly into your vehicle's tow hitch, and we recommend that you do this with our anti-rattle mechanism that's going to ensure that there's no rattle or wobble when you're using this over corrugations or off-road conditions. The Gen 3 tilting spare wheel carrier has 2 points of adjustment into your vehicle's tow hitch. You want to select the one that's bringing the lower assembly as close to the vehicle as possible without clashing or interfering with your rear bumper. To install our anti-rattle mechanism, I recommend using an impact driver with a 24mm socket. And you basically want to insert the anti-rattle mechanism into our hitch receiver all the way down until it lines up with your hitch pin position. And then we're using our M16 high tensile bolt to actually bolt into that anti-rattle mechanism, removing any of this rattle or slop. If it's easier to do, you can actually insert the anti-rattle mechanism from the rear of the hitch as well to give you more clearance. Once you've tightened this high tensile bolt, make sure you put a washer and a nut on the opposing side and tighten that to ensure that it doesn't come loose. Most vehicles will also have a grub screw on the bottom of the hitch that you can use to remove any additional play or rattle out of this assembly. The next step is joining the vertical posts to the lower assembly, and the first step in doing that is in assembling the pivot point. So we've given you 9 washers. You want to use 4 washers on one side and 5 on the other side. I'll initially set up 4 washers and poke the pivot point bolt through those washers, which will then allow me to bring the vertical post into position and mount that bolt through. Have the locking pin ready, because what this is going to allow you to do is bring it up to the vertical position and pin it off so we can finish the pivot point. Now this can be a little bit fiddly, so you might need a second pair of hands, but you want to insert now the 5 or 4 washers, if you've done 5 on the other side, into that gap there, lining it up with the bolt hole, and then you want to slide the pivot point bolt through those washers completely out the other side. You'll notice in this side here that sometimes the washers aren't lined up, so you can use a small Allen key or bolt to get them all in line before you push the main pivot bolt through. You then want to tighten this nut until you remove all of the slop from this vertical post out of the pivot point. So you do want to do this up quite tight. Now it doesn't matter which side's got 5 or 4 washers. The only thing that's important here is that there are no gaps between the 2 sides, and that when you're tightening it, there's no slop in that mechanism. Now we want to join the struts to the product, and there's a few steps you need to do here to make sure this goes smoothly. The first step is installing these M8 cap bolts and bolting them up in this sequence. First nut is a non-nylock nut, so you can get it all the way down. You then tighten that on both sides. And now this is the critical step. You want to remove the locking pin and push the vertical posts past vertical, and this will allow the struts to be mounted at their full extension. Start by inserting the threaded rod, then a washer, then a hex coupling on both sides. Make sure when you're pre-assembling this part here that you are directly in the center, so you have pretty well equal distances remaining on the thread both sides. You can now tighten these up with a 13mm spanner on both sides. These gas struts have 70 kilograms of force per strut, so with 140 kilos of combined force, it's going to make this action of tilting the tyre significantly easier. Make sure when you're mounting the strut that you're doing it in this orientation. That way no dust or water is going to get stuck in the strut and cause you problems over time. Pop them on and then tighten them up with the M8 nylock nuts so they don't come loose. If you have issues getting any of these struts on, you can go a step backwards and actually loosen one of these. That'll give you a bit more play, and that'll then allow for that strut to be mounted for tightening it again. When you're tightening these final nylock nuts here, you don't want to over tighten these. You just want to tighten them to a point that they will touch the strut. Maybe provide a slight bit of tension, but nothing extreme. The next step is to install the rubber vibration isolators, and there is a little bit of a sequence to this. You basically want to pull the vertical post down and insert the rubber with the bolt in this orientation through this hole here in the rear. and then you can relieve this and let it come back up. What that's doing is providing tension within the locking pin setup by actually squishing this rubber in the vertical position. You can then put the front rubber on using the same bolt with a nut on the front. You want to use an Allen key on the back face, and then quite often I'll actually use a flathead screwdriver to stop the nut from spinning on this front face to allow this to be tightened. Now there is a slot laser cut in the back of this plate, but we don't have access here, so we're going to pull this vertical post down to allow us to get that Allen key in there, and then we can begin tightening. I'm going to use a pair of long nose pliers in this case to hold the nut on the opposite side, and then we just want to tighten this till there's no movement. Now you will need to compress the rubber initially to have this pin go through, which is our locking pin. This will get softer over time and become a little bit easier. You're just inserting that into there and then retaining it with an R-clip, keep it from coming loose. We're now ready to mount the tyre to this product. With this vertical post, it does stay down horizontal, but when the moment it comes up slightly, it will want to come up. That will be a bit better when you've got a tyre on there, but if you do want to access the vehicle without a tyre fitted, you need to pull this down completely horizontal and then access your vehicle. Mounting the tyre is as simple as hooking onto the top stud, and then for a 5-stud rim we're going to use 2 additional pieces of hardware to fix that to that mounting plate. Ensure that your hubcap is removed from the rim before fitting so we can utilize this receiver for our number plate relocator. We're going to mount these bits of hardware on with a 22mm spanner on the rear and a 19mm spanner or socket on the front. Alright, the last step is to relocate your number plate onto the spare wheel carrier. And this is important to do as it's a legal requirement because you're going to be blocking the number plate on your actual vehicle. So you just want to insert this into the tyre bracket, and then there's a grub screw on the side that you'll tighten to get rid of that play. You can mount your number plate and then you're completely compliant. So our number plate relocation bracket is universal in all states, and it will also allow for the temporary number plates or auxiliary number plates that you can purchase from the DOT or your local government essentially. We've also got a lighting harness that your product should come with, or you can purchase from our web store, and that'll basically allow for a light to be mounted above the number plate, and then you have a harness that you run down the carrier into your trailer plug that'll make sure that that number plate is illuminated and you remain compliant. You've just got to make sure that the tow hitch point is constantly retightened to make sure there's no rattle in them, and that you're properly assembling the product as per this video. These Gen 3 tilting spare wheel carriers will last forever. I've had customers using these things for 10 years with no problems.